So whenever I'm playing any position on the neck of the guitar, any 3 notes per string position, my view of the neck is much broader than that sort of restricted box that I'm playing in at that time. I'm actually thinking of notes that extend out above and below the shape that I'm playing. And that gives me an enormous amount of flexibility in terms of conceptually how I'm thinking about what I'm playing, being able to slide or use notes that are outside of that position without having to sort of reset my thought processes. And it allows me to think in terms of sort of regions of the guitar neck, not just this 3 notes per string position and then that one and then that one. So when I'm sliding, maybe I'm playing in B major just here. And if I'm slide up to that note, I don't reset, or I don't necessarily need to reset to the next position. I can still keep that original position in my mind, realizing that this is a note that's just outside of that position. Now the ability to do this is really quite straightforward to develop, and you can do it most of the time these days. When I do this, I'm doing it by hearing the notes. You know, I know the sound of the scales, I know the sound of the intervals, and I can just slide up to the next interval. But you can also learn to do this mechanically as well by understanding how the scales fit together. And that's what I thought I'd focus on this week. Now this approach works specifically for the major scale and its modes, so the major, the Dorian, the Phrygian, the natural minor scales. This approach doesn't work for the harmonic minor or the melodic minor. You need a different set of rules for those. So we're just going to focus on the major scale, and I'm going to show you how you can calculate, how you can know what the next note is above any 3 notes that you play and what the next note is below any 3 notes that you play. So if you like, your view of the neck is 5 notes a string, not 3 notes a string. So let's zoom in and I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so I'm just going to play around in the key of B major, starting on the 7th fret just here. But obviously you can use this any key, any shape, anywhere on the neck. And when you look at any shape, you'll see that there are actually only 3 different types of finger movement on each string. So you'll either see 3 notes separated by a tone, like you see in the first 2 strings there, or you'll see semitone, tone, yeah, or you'll see a tone and a semitone. Okay? So there are only 3 possible groupings of 3 notes on each string if you're playing the major scale, or one of the modes of the major scale. And so what we're looking for are some simple rules that we can apply in each of those positions to see if we can work out what the note is. If we take any particular group of 3 notes on a string, what's the note above it and what's the note below it? And that'll give us all 5 notes on that string. So the rule actually is really simple if you're playing either semitone, tone, or tone, semitone. The note above each of these shapes is always a tone higher. So it's always 2 frets higher, or it's always 2 frets lower. So let me see if I can just quickly demonstrate that. So if you're going up the B major, if you ignore the first 2 strings, starting here, it's a semitone, tone, so the note above there will be always a tone higher, which is just there, and you can hear it's the same note as there. Semitone, tone again, so we go a tone higher, tone higher, tone higher. And similarly when we're descending, like I say, for these 2 shapes it's always a tone lower. Down a tone, down a tone, down a tone, down a tone. So in this shape, I've already worked out 4 strings with 5 notes on them, just around this simple shape. And so the only slightly more difficult rule is around strings where you've got 2 tones separating them. because there are two choices really. You'll see 2 times out of 3 the note above one of those will be a semitone, or the note one of those will be a semitone. Okay, so 2 times out of 3 it'll be a semitone. On the third case, the note above could be a tone, and that always happens when you're playing 4, 5, 6, 7, leading up to the root. Yeah. So it's actually something that you can develop an ear for. You can start to hear when you hear that kind of ascending line. It will lead up to the 7th, which is another tone higher. So that's if you've got that innate ear for this, you should be able to hear that and differentiate between 3 notes which need a semitone above and 3 notes which you need a tone above. But if you're looking for a mechanical solution, if you haven't actually developed your ear to this stage where you can hear that grouping of notes yet, what you can do is look at the next string above when you're ascending. So if the next string above is the same tone again, then you slide up a semitone. Hear that? However, if the next string above is a semitone tone, then you slide up a tone. And those are the only 2 combinations of string movements that you'll ever encounter. You'll either have a pair of strings which is a tone and a tone, or a tone and a semitone tone. Okay? And similarly, descending, there are 2 possible arrangements of strings. You could have semitone, 2 notes separated by a tone, then 2 notes separated by a tone. And in that case, you descend by a semitone. Okay. And the other case is the 3 notes separated by a tone, and then a semitone between the first 2 notes and the last note. And if you're encountering that case, then you need to descend by a tone. So these rules feel a little bit more complicated, but in practice, you'll find your way around these really rather quickly. And as I say, 2 out of 3 times it'll be a semitone above, and in every other case where you're working with semitones and tones, or tones and semitones, it's always a tone higher. Okay, so hopefully that was reasonably straightforward. Let's see if we can come up with an exercise that allows you to bed this in so you can start to use it yourself. So what's a good exercise to start playing with these concepts? Well, what I like to do is just pick a scale, pick a position. So in this case, I've been working around B major, around 7th fret. And then all I do is just start playing around, just seeing. And slides between notes is actually quite a fun way of So that's it. Hopefully that's useful for you. As I say, it gives you a much broader area of the neck that you can focus on, which is really quite powerful because you now have choices. You can choose to stay within the region that you're working on, or you can choose to move out. You can choose to change position or just stretch out of position, which is really quite powerful. And it also gives you an insight to know where to use slides and things like that that may take you out of position. So I find it really useful to be able to have this kind of view of the neck, and hopefully you will too. So I hope that was useful for you, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.